Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock, which means it's time for a Talk Magic, and I couldn't be more excited. I've been trying to get an interview with this man for a long time. I have been performing his material since pretty much the last decade. I'm a huge fan. He is an incredible performer, a creator, one of the most honest people in Magic, a consultant. He's done it all, bought the t-shirt, and back again. I am, of course, talking about the legend of Magic, and I genuinely mean that. The one and only Brent Braun. How you doing, Brent?
I'm good, but that seems like a little much, man. Like I appreciate the intro, but man,
I owe you so much. I owe you so much money just from Torch to Restored. Like just from that one trick alone, I'd probably owe you so much money in commission. Like seriously, just that one trick.
Everybody watching should probably send me more money for that, because that's one of those tricks I released early on that I didn't make a lot of money on, right? Because it was one of the first things that I ever released. So what I'm going to say is, if you're watching this now and you've used it, just PayPal me some money. Sort of makes it even for everybody. That seems like a great idea.
It's fair.
Yeah, it seems fair. If you're using it, why not? It's like a re-up subscription charge or something.
I use it all the time to this day. There's no better Torn and Restored card. It's killer. It's just so good. And do you know Ben? Do you know Ben Williams? You know, Ben Williams labeled it. Yeah, I was talking to Ben Williams and Lloyd Barnes today. We did a thing on YouTube, like a Torn and Restored special. And Ben Williams, who does so many different versions of Torn and Restored, he said, well, I got to say the best version is by Brent Braun, and it's Tortured and Restored. So,
That's amazing. Yeah. And again, like we were talking before we got on, Craig, I think it's because it was built in the real world, right? From the ground up. Like I created that in bars and in restaurants when I was working a lot, and did it over and over and over again. And at the time, right, this is the 2000s, early 2000s, everyone was doing piece by piece restorations. And very quickly I discovered, like, you can do those, but a lot of people are going to learn the method if you're doing them in a bar or a restaurant, or, it's going to flash. It's not going to be easy. It doesn't reset quickly. It's not easy to get into or out of. And I created Tortured and Restored because I needed a thing that I could do 100 times a night. Yeah. And know that it's angle free, there's no issues. So like we talked about that. It's because I just performed that thing thousands of times before I ever released it. Right. So everything that could have gone wrong did go wrong, and I corrected it and resorted it and started from scratch. And I think that's what it takes, right? You got to put, I think the example I talk about is you got to put, you got to cook the stew, right? Yeah. You got to figure out what you want to do and then just do it a bunch. And then you find out exactly what makes it good.
And I want to talk to you about that, because obviously you have certain views about Magic. They're very in line with my views. But before we get into any of that, just in case there's somebody here watching this that doesn't know who you are, and I can't imagine that there is, let's just do a very quick frame of reference for everyone, do an origin story, and just very quickly just go through how you got into Magic, because I'm interested. I don't know this story, so it feels like you've been around forever. How did you get into Magic? What was the origin story?
Yeah, so it's supposed to be great. You're supposed to have a grandfather that's a magician, or an uncle that did a thing. Or no, I went through a divorce when I was 20 years old. I went through a divorce. I became a single father, and at that time, I sort of lost everything, because they know in divorce you lose money and you lose the house. You don't think about the fact, or even know the fact, that you sort of lose your family and your friend circle and all the people that are around you all the time. Your life completely changes because everyone you see on a daily basis changes. So I ended up sort of with my son, who was 2 at the time, I think. I don't sleep. I'm one of these guys that's up late at night all the time. And I needed a hobby to do, right? So I would put my son to bed at 8 o'clock, and then I would need something to do till 2 or 3 in the morning. And then one day I walked into a magic shop, and I wasn't at a great spot in my life, right? I had a lot of thoughts going on, and a lot of anger, and a lot of like, what am I even trying to do? Where do I want to be in life? Yeah. And then I saw that magic trick. I walked into a magic shop, and a guy did Triumph for me. And then when I left, man, for the next 3 days, all I could think about was like how that was even possible. And I didn't know. I knew like one card trick, like a version of the circus card trick that I used to do in bars and stuff, like bar bets, and I would do a version of that. So I was interested in cards, but didn't know anything about, anything else. So when I saw Triumph, I sort of took a deck of cards and tried to figure out how it was even possible, and just couldn't get my brain or my space there, But I realized that in some way it made everything feel, it's the moment I try to give people now, right? Is whatever's going on out there, and however you feel, if we can give you a moment to just make you sort of question everything or not understand everything, this feels like a weird origin story that's like, depressed boy sees magic trick and changes life. And it's not that. But in some way, it was that. I just couldn't get it out of my mind. Yeah. And then I went back into the magic shop and I learned a couple tricks over the next couple of months. And then I realized that it opened my social circle up, right? I'm already sort of outgoing and energetic, but now I could walk into a restaurant or a bar or a nightclub. I could walk into any place that I was and immediately be the most interesting person in the room for real, right? And it started out maybe in a negative way, is that it was about me, you know? And for those first 3 or 4 years, it was about me getting attention and finding a new social network and finding friends that I had sort of lost in the divorce. But then eventually I started to get more out of it, and sort of that shift happens. I think it's how the shift happens for a lot of us. We get into magic for us, and then when you really start to find the art and the finesse of it, you realize you're actually into magic for everyone else, or for what it can do for them or give them, which sounds lofty or impossible, you know, but that's my intent now. My intent now is to give somebody a moment that can sort of let them, the moment of astonishment. I mean, if anybody watching this, read everything Paul Harris has written on it. That was the driving factor for me. Those books, those Art of Astonishment books, and the idea that you could give somebody something bigger than, haha, you don't know how that works. It changed everything. Yeah.
And when did you think to yourself, you know what, I could do this professionally, I could make money out of this, I could do this as a career? Was it within those 4 years, or how soon into it was it kind of starting to become, right, I'm going to go out and do gigs, I'm going to go out and make money doing this?
Yeah, so there were a couple things that led up to that. One thing was that I say all the time, I've always been lucky enough to have people in my life who sort of believe in me more than I believe in myself. And that was the first gig I ever got. A guy who was sort of a manager at the place that I was currently working at the time came to me and said, hey, there's this trade show that we can take you to. I want you to perform there. We pay this guy money. And I go, no, I don't perform professionally. I just like doing tricks. And he's like, yeah, but you're better than he is. And this is how much money we paid him. And I go, oh, that's more money than I make in 3 months. And that's how much you paid him? I think I could probably do a trade show. And I shouldn't have. I wasn't ready. But the great thing is that person sort of vouching for me and bringing me into that environment is why it worked. Because everybody would come up and he would say, hey, you got to see this guy. He's the best in the world. And him vouching for me just made that gig work perfectly. And then I went, oh, wow, this is something I can do, right? And by that time, that was probably 3 years in, 2.5 to 3 years into me actually performing at bars and restaurants a lot. I'd already sort of figured out the hustle side of walk around magic, which I think is the hardest part of walk around magic, right? And when I say the hustle, I just mean the ability to walk into a room and be more interesting than anything else that's currently happening. Yeah. And that was the struggle for me. So once I figured out I could get paid to do that, it already came naturally to me, right? I'm already sort of outgoing and energetic, but being able to do it with magic sort of shifted and changed everything. So I did a gig and it went really well. And then I thought, well, wow, I should be doing more gigs. In the meantime, there was a local brick and mortar magic shop that sort of had some financial trouble. They needed somebody to come in and run it. And I was the guy. So I quit my job, like with no agreement to get paid. They said, look, we're going to have to close if we can't figure something out. And I said, well, while you guys are figuring it out, I'll show up every day and work here. And I just quit my job. I went into the job as working one day and just said, look, I'm not coming back. I'm going to go hang out in a magic shop every day.
Wow.
That's what I did. And I did that knowing that being in the magic shop is where I was going to be able to, number one, book gigs. But number two, that magic shop, I was lucky that it was one of these old school magic shops that rarely exist anymore, that had 1,000 books on the bookshelf. So I knew being there, Craig, every night I was going to be able to sneak a book home off the shelf and learn and educate myself free. So when I worked there for that next year and a half, they were making me a sort of a name in magic regionally, because a lot of phone calls were coming in. And the guy who ran the shop at the time, the other guy, was like a kids performer. So he didn't want to do walk around and didn't want to do corporate events and didn't want to do any of that stuff. So I knew I could take all those shows and do all those shows. But also I knew that worst case scenario, I was going to take a year off of life and grind, because I was also working these bars and restaurants. I was getting paid to do it through, I don't call it busking or street performing, but I would do a trick. Somebody would say, oh my gosh, that's great. Show it to Derek. And I would be like, I would love to, but you have to give me money to do it. That was exactly the claim that I would have. And I eventually sort of came up with like bits and jokes. And there's a thing where I figured out a way that you can sell regular ink pens for $5 to people. So I would sell 30 or 40 ink pens a night and make $200 a night. So I was making enough money to scrape by a living at the time, just on Thursdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, even not employed, but just going out and making $100, $150 in tips by asking people for money. But then that leads me to just being able to do that on the weekends. If I didn't get a show, getting some shows from the Magic Shop. But more importantly, I knew that I'd be able to take the next year to read every book in the Magic Shop. And man, that's where my education comes in, right?
Yeah.
Reading all 600 books every night. And, I'm not that way anymore. I wish I was. We have some guys that come in the Magic Shop that literally, I could destroy a book in 2 days, right? Like I could just go home and for 12 hours straight, read the book and then be excited to come home the next day and read the book for 12 more hours. Like I don't have it in me anymore. But man, at that point in time, I was so hungry that I would just read everything so fast.
Wow. Well, before we carry on with the story,
that was the short story 9 minutes later.
That was awesome. That was awesome. 2 things I want to bring up about that. Number one, you mentioned that you learned how to approach people, be the most interesting person in the room. One question I get on this channel over and over again is, I want to get into close-up magic. I want to be a walk-around performer. I can't figure out how to walk up to people and engage them in conversation and start. And it is a difficult thing to do. You've got to walk up to people who are having their own intimate conversation. They've never met you before. Within 3 seconds, you've got to get them wanting to listen to you as opposed to continue to have their own conversation. So I suppose the first question on that is, have you got any advice on that? Because I know you do it really well.
Yeah, so it depends on, at that point, before I was doing this professionally, I would just do attention getters. So I would go into a bar, I would stand in the corner, and I would do the Hummer card. Toss the card, I would let it float, and then somebody would come up. And as soon as they come up, Craig, I would immediately see them, notice they saw me, I would put the card away and pretend like they weren't supposed to see. And then they would go, "Whoa, what was that?" And you'd be like, "Nothing." And they're like, "Yeah, but wasn't that card floating?" And you kind of go, "Yeah, here, let me show you something." Okay, I'll show you something. And then I do ambitious card. I don't show them the floating card anymore. But what I'm doing is allowing them to see the napkin float. And then they see it and it falls. And now they're obligated in their brain to figure out what the hell kind of reality they're living in, right? So then they come over and go, what was that thing there? And I go, oh, it's just a napkin. Here, let me show you something else. Take a card, hold a coin, look at this pen. And then I get them into the next thing. Right. Yeah. But the thing for me is to not be the alpha. I don't want to go in and be, I'm the coolest guy in the room. Right.
Yeah.
I want to go in and be like, I have special powers. You're going to see or recognize that. And then you're going to open the door to me. Right. That's how I did it early on when I wasn't being paid professionally, which means I could have downtime. I could sit at the corner of the bar and float a card for 35 minutes before someone would ask me. But as soon as they ask me, it's also then the dominoes start. As soon as somebody says, show me a thing, I consider the dominoes starting to fall, which means I can either push them uphill or I can let them go downhill and they're going to die, which means I have to keep the energy with that first person. So when I show that first person, my goal is to get them to evangelize to someone else in the room. And if I can get that space just by saying, actually, you know what, I need 2 people for this. Perfect. They're going to have a friend there and they're going to bring the friend over. They're going to find a friend, right? But now I'm not the one begging you to watch. They're going, wait, come here, sir, mister, we've never met. What? Well, he needs 2 people to do this. He's a magician. He's awesome. I just saw Willie show him. And now they're evangelizing for me, right? Nice. And that happens as soon as that first domino falls, Craig. We've got to go. We've got to push because we're building that energy. We're building that energy in that space. And then you'll notice that in 15 or 20 minutes, whatever that sort of thing, it sort of dies down and that group walks away. And then you sit back down at the bar and you make the napkin float again.
Yeah.
Boom, somebody else sees it. Now you get another one of those bursts, you know? And my goal with that was at the end of one of those sort of sets or things is to sort of ask people for money and explain to them that I'm a professional magician. I do this for a living, and then get 3 or 4 people to give me, you know, $1, $2, $3, $5. And I would make, you know, $30 a set. And I would do that, you know, 5, 10 times a night. And I was doing okay, you know, not getting rich by any means, but I wasn't there to get rich, right? I was there to just have fun and try to not have a day job.
But you know what? That's such an interesting approach. I see people that work the streets, and I see people that maybe get hired by a restaurant for primarily tips. But I've never really spoken to anyone that goes into a bar, hustles, makes money from that. And that's really inspirational, because you see people that say, I'm going to be a professional magician, but I need to get this in place. And 10 years later, I'm going to be a professional magician, but I need to do this. And you're just like, fuck it. You know, I want to be a professional magician. I'm quitting my job. I'm going to work in a magic shop for free, because that's the best place to get an education. And I'm going to go and make money down the bar, however long it takes, while I go and build my gigs up. And that's such an inspirational thing to hear. It's like that whole, if I don't make it happen, it's not going to happen, right?
Yeah, and for me, it probably comes up through my background in sort of punk rock and skate culture. And, you know, I grew up in the 90s, graduated high school in 94. And that's, you know, that's what the guys in bands I knew were doing, right? When they wanted to become professional musicians, they weren't trying to build the perfect album to get Sony to sign them on a platform. They were piling into a van, driving 300 miles round trip to do a show for $65. And that's sort of the lifestyle that I grew up in. That's what my friends and my sort of culture around me was doing. So that's how I understood to do it. And at the expense of, I didn't drive a nice car. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't drive a fancy vehicle. I didn't have, you know, I was living in my parents' basement at the time, paying them $30 a month in rent or something ridiculous, right? Like, I gave up a lot of things that entitled people have that tie them down to that job. I mean, it's even how we can talk later about how we opened the current shop and how we made that work. But one of the things that happened is my wife and I just downsized, and we went from a 3,500 square foot house to 999 square feet, so that I wouldn't have to make as much money, so that I could do what I wanted to do in life, which was super great. And again, it is that very, you know, for me, it's sort of punk rock skate culture of like, I just have to do what I love to do so much that if I were homeless but got to do it, maybe that would work. And then you quickly realize that there's always something in between. You're always going to be able to make, if you were good at anything, you should be able to grind out $25,000 a year in it. And you can live off that if you don't have a boat and a car and, you know, if you don't buy the newest Nintendo every year and a half, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So and a lot of that is probably, again, because I grew up in that culture and I grew up without a lot of money. I just learned to not, I don't appreciate stuff. I don't buy stuff or want stuff, which also I understand makes me unlike anyone else, or unlike most people out there, right? Like, I don't collect things. Like, my friends were like, I don't know how you can afford to you know, run your own business and do what you do, Brent. I would love to do that. I go, yeah, well, okay, but you own $75,000 in Star Wars action figures, bro. Like, and I'm not shaming them about that at all. Look, own what you want to own what you want to own. But it's hard to sort of tell me you wish you could quit your job and then pull up out front in a $45,000 truck and tell me how you're stuck doing your job you hate. Well, you just got stuck for another 6 years on the lease, bro. Like, you know, and I feel weird talking about these things, because I know a lot of people watching have car payments. Don't think that I'm judging any of you, because I'm not. I'm just saying that if you want what you want, if you sort of define what you want and are passionate about it, I think you could always find a way to make that happen. And if I were passionate about owning the new Ford F500, I'm sure I could figure out a way to do it. That's just not what I'm passionate about, you know?
Yeah, I totally get that. And it's really good advice. So going back to the magic shop, you said you worked there for 1.5 years. What was the reason for leaving? Was it because the work picked up? You didn't have time to work in the magic shop? Was that the reason?
No. I worked there for 1 year. It might have been closer to 2 years. I'm really not good with timelines, but I worked there for 2 years, and I realized that I was, the shop when I worked there when I got hired there wasn't very successful, right? And then I realized 2 years into it, the shop was becoming successful, but only because I was learning how to pitch magic when they didn't know how to pitch magic, learning what to buy and what to sell. And I was turning it into a magic shop. So 2 years into it, I realized that I'm making money and they're paying me, I think at the time they're paying me $100 a week or something. And nothing against them. They didn't have a lot of money. I just realized at some point that I was building a lot of revenue for them that I could be building for myself. So at year 5 of my magic career or something, I started my own magic shop.
Okay. So had you started creating magic at that point? Because obviously, yeah. So where did that all come in? So before the magic shop, you started creating magic. What led to you starting to create magic?
Yeah, so I happened to run into when I first got into magic. Even when I was coming in the magic shop for the first 2 or 3 years, I thought it was just like an old crusty white guy sort of thing. You know, they had the like silk chain on the ceiling and like boxes with Chinese symbols on it. So I would sneak into the magic shop, buy the good books I knew I wanted, and leave. And didn't really think magic was cool at all. And then I was in the magic shop one day and I saw a cool young kid about my age do a magic trick, and he left. And I asked the guy who runs the shop, like, who's that guy? And he's like, oh, that's Jason Newman. And I was like, got it. I need to meet that guy, because he was the first young, cool magician that I'd seen that was sort of doing good stuff. And come to find out, he was working at a local casino. So I was able to bump into him at the casino. I'd never gone to this casino in my life, but I was like, there's a magician. I'm going to go become friends with him. That was the whole intent. So I went to the casino 3 or 4 times and didn't see him. One night I bumped into him and we became friends. I was like, oh, you do magic. That's cool. I also do some magic. I've never heard of you or seen you. This is weird.
Nice.
Right. So then we just become friends, and then we start sort of working with each other and working on things and studying things, and that's was the first group where I felt comfortable sort of creating magic. And then Torch and Restore was the first thing that I ever created that I knew was special, because I'd been working on it for a while. And then I remember showing it to Jason one night, and he just didn't say anything, right? Like after I did, and it was probably 90% of what it is today. It was almost done. And I did it for him, and it wasn't like, there was no immediate like, oh yeah, but what if we change this and move that? And what if we spun that? And what if he just looked at me for a minute and he went, huh, I'm fooled. I have no idea what just happened. And I went, whoa, like this is, because he's not a guy that I'd ever fooled or ever thought, right? And that's when I realized, like, oh, Torch to Restored has something. And then I started to show it around to, I started doing it. I was doing it in the bars and the nightclubs a lot at that point. And then I started showing it around other magicians. And I would show it to some pretty smart guys, and I could tell they were fooled. I could tell that they were like, yeah, I don't know. And then that sort of becomes a thing. Yeah.
And you released that through which company was it?
So originally I released it myself as a like a 24-page pamphlet. It was a self-released product.
I still have that somewhere. Yeah, the pamphlet.
Yeah. And again, just super lucky. I still have a relationship with Tim Toronto to this day. I just sent Tim Toronto a copy of the book to sit on his desk. And again, I sort of try to think these things through all the way. So the first thing I did was printed booklets, went to a convention in Florida with 100 booklets, sold them out of my backpack. Again, sort of, that punk rock convention crasher style that we used to do back in the day. So I sold 100 pamphlets to people, met Lee Asher. Lee Asher started to vouch for it at the convention and told everybody how great it was. And because nobody knew me at the time, some young kid comes in with this trick that Lee Asher says is one of the best things he's seen at the convention. I sell out of booklets, and now the buzz starts to buzz. So then when I get home and one lands on Tim's desk, Tim's heard a buzz about it, but he doesn't know what it is. And then Tim, we hop on a phone call, we work out a deal, Murphy's buys. And because at the time I was a little, I don't know if it was shady, right? But I just didn't know the industry. At the same time that Tim had said yes, I reached out to all the big boxes in both the US and the UK and sold each one of those shops a couple of hundred. So I think Tim might have bought 500, but then Penguin bought 300 and this other place bought 300. And it was sort of weird. I didn't realize at the time, because I sold them to Murphy's, so Murphy's could sell them to Penguin and to Alakazam and to all those places. And then all of a sudden, when they called and tried to sell them, all those places said, oh, we've already got a couple of hundred. Brent's already sold them to us. but my intent was, I knew that if Penguin could buy 300, they would want to promote it. they would want to sell it because they had 300 sitting on their shelf. I knew that if they invested in it and already had money in it, they were more likely to push it than they were if they could order them 5 at a time from Murphy's.
Yeah.
Right. So that was sort of the structure that I'd developed. And I don't do business that way anymore. But in the beginning, it was just me with that hustle mindset of I'll sell this company as many as they'll take, and then I'll call everyone else. And then Penguin was huge with that. Penguin was, with the success of that product, it was sort of early on in the Penguin days, and they did really, really well with it. Right. I mean, every couple of months they'd order another 500 or 600 from me. And I didn't expect it to ever sell that many. And then there were a few other retailers that did really well with it. I think Peter Nardi did really well with it. I think I know that Hocus Pocus Magic did really well with it. You know, at that time, there were like 5 or 6 of those big internet players. And I think all of them did really, really well with that. Yeah.
That's amazing. And was it the success of Torched and Restored that led to you opening a magic shop? You said that you opened a magic shop because you left the... you wanted to be able to do it yourself. Was that also off the back of Torched and Restored and thinking, well, I've got this. It's been super popular.
Yeah, no, it was off the success of, I say the thing that I love in life. I love magic and I love problem solving. But the place that makes me happier than any place in life is to be outnumbered, surrounded, and having people throw money at me.
Yeah.
And that's the pitch life. That's when I started to understand the pitch life, and that I started to understand how much money you can make on the other side of a counter with a product, a hook, and an out. And I started to understand over those 2 years in the magic shop how I could take somebody that would come in the door, not, we're walking down the street. We didn't know there was a magic shop here, and I could get them for $40.
Mm-hmm.
That was like the goal and the drive that I have. I would just know, and that's what I fell in love with. I fell in love with the idea of if someone is willing to give me hard-earned cash to see magic, and they're making the decision to give it to me, that transaction is positive, because they wouldn't do that if what I showed them sucked.
Yeah.
It is the ultimate barometer, or one of the ultimate barometers. It's why street magicians are so good, because street magicians that aren't good don't get paid and they don't continue to work, right? Yeah. And pitching magic is a very similar thing. If I can show you a presentation of the Rising card deck, if it's not good, you're not going to give me your money.
Yeah.
When it's good, you're going to give me your money, right? Like, as long as you fall into the parameter of somebody who's interested in learning this thing. So that's what I really fell in love with at the magic shop for the first 2 years is pitching and the art of the pitch and hooking people and understanding how to turn away and when to turn away and when to give them space and all the psychology of that hustle. And I also fell in love with the idea that a young kid from Henryville, Indiana, that has no college degree and no background in anything can make pretty good money by selling magic tricks. It was pretty, it's still to this day amazes me that it's a thing that I can make a living on, And that, I think those 2 years, the answer to the question is, those 2 years just proved to me that I could make a living off of owning a magic shop, right?
And the shop that you opened up at that point, that's still the shop that you're running now, right? It's
same name, completely different shops, right? So that shop, the current shop we're running is J&B Magic Shop. The J in J&B is for Jason Newman, who was the original guy that I talked about earlier that I saw and met at the casino. That was the original Jason. One day I was talking to him and I was like, hey, I think I'd like to open a magic shop one day, but like, instead of working at this one, I think I'd like to open another one that I could run and own. And he's like, well, how much do you think that would cost? And I was like, this amount of money. And he goes, okay, meet me at the bank tomorrow.
Wow.
And that's the end of the story, right? I meet Jason Newman the next day at the bank. We open a magic shop together. And all that could happen because Jason was not only a magician, but he was also a professional poker player. And poker players, money's not real to poker players, right? If you know real poker players that play, every dollar represents 10 more dollars they could earn.
Right.
It doesn't represent a boat or a car or a thing. It represents 10 more dollars that they can earn. And they're constantly taking risks with that bankroll. So it's easy for them to have a bankroll and just put it on a table because they have no emotional connection to that money. And if they're a good poker player, there's this sort of belief that if you're a poker player, you go broke one day and you don't have a bankroll. Well, the truth is, when you're a good poker player, if you go broke, other good poker players will stake you because they know you're a good player. So even if you were to lose all the money you have on Monday, on Tuesday, somebody would give you more money so that you could play on Thursday and then pay them back on Friday, right? When you're good, when you are actually a good poker player and not somebody who's lucky or not somebody who's, that. So I think Newman just knew that like I was going to be successful no matter what. And he didn't care. For him, it was no different than pushing all in a $7,000 pot, right? For him, it was no different than that. He was pushing all in on me and just knew that I could make it happen and that he wasn't going to lose all of it, right? And then a year into that, he was like, look, I don't want to own a magic shop. I just wanted to see you be successful. I paid him back. That was the end of that thing. But we still in honor. We still call it JB Magic Shop. But that magic shop closes. That was a magic shop in a mall that was open for about 3 years maybe. And then it moved maybe 4 years. Then it moved to another location and moved around a couple times. So it's the same in name and branding, but it's not the same location at all.
Okay. But it's the same one. You've just moved it around a whole bunch. And you've just
and there was a middle spot where it was closed for 6 years. There was a middle spot where when I was 32, I think maybe a little younger than that, 30 or 30, I had to go into the real world to change me from the businessman that I was that would hustle and sort of take advantage of Murphy's to a real businessman, to understand ethics and to understand. So I got hired by a local sort of home improvement high-end design center in their sales department, and then worked my way up to be the regional sales manager and the general sales manager there. Because I didn't take the job because of the job. I took the job because of the owner. When I met him, it was a crazy story. I decided I was going to have to go back to work. I emailed all my friends and said, hey, I think I need to go back to work. If anybody knows anybody's hiring. Friend emailed me back and said, hey, sit down and talk to David Stimler. He owns this company. I think you'd really like him. I talked to David, and David's like, I don't have a position for you, but I want to hire you. So we'll figure that out. And I was like, this guy gets it. He understands what I don't. And me working for this guy is going to allow me to understand business. It's going to give me the education I need, which is what it did. Running that business for 6 years taught me how to fire people, taught me how to hire people, taught me true customer service and cost of business, taught me inventory turns and closeouts, taught me the thing that he taught me probably more than anything else is seeing things wide and wide and deep. And when you look at a problem, think about what it looks like in 30 years, not in 5 years. The magic shop that I ran before that, Craig, was successful, but it was successful in the same way that people are. It was a month-to-month business. At the end of every month, rent would be $700, and I would write a check out of my checking account for $700, even though I only had $650. And I would have 5 days to hustle up the $50 so that check wouldn't bounce before the bank cashed it. And that's how I ran business. I was always thinking about how to pay rent by the end of the month. I was never thinking about the 3 to 5 year business plan and business model. And that's what David Stimler really helped me understand, is how to think sort of bigger, a bit more. And it was probably also my age. I was just making more responsible decisions, and he helped me understand how important that is, right?
I understand.
In an extent, like earlier, I talked about the thing that I did with Murphy's through Tim Trana early on, right? Where I sold them a bunch of things and then sold everything. I would never do that today. But at the time, it was all just dollars to me. It wasn't about the relationship I was building with Murphy's or the relationship I was building with the Penguin. It wasn't about a relationship at all. It was about, I just need to make money. Let me cash out and make this money as fast as I can and as quick as I can, But now I would never make those decisions in business, because I know next time I have a product to sell to those people, I've taken advantage of them, which isn't a good way to operate,
And was it difficult, almost like turning your back on your dream? You said earlier on, I was hustling in bars because it was better than getting a proper job, and how much you love magic, and you finally get to a point where you've got this magic shop and you're not doing great with it. You're doing okay. You're living month by month, but it's your own business. Was it difficult to kind of say to yourself, well, you know what? I need to take a step back, because the only way I'm going to go forward is to take a step back? Was it hard, or was it kind of not? It was easy because of timing, right? My wife and I got pregnant, and if there's anything that I love more than my passion for magic, it's taking care of my kids, right? And that was the thing. I just thought to myself, like once that happens, I'm in a position where I go, okay, the game has changed. I'm not that young punk rock kid who can make 300-mile trips in a van to make $75 for a show anymore, right? I have responsibilities bigger than myself now, and I need to figure out what those look like. And at the time, I was burnt out on magic at that point. I just produced Dex Slides and Videotape, my first DVD, and it had done really well. And it was sort of on its downstroke, and it was a lot of work for me to produce.
I self-produced it, and it was harder on me emotionally than I thought it would be. Just the entire process of putting my ideas out there, and hoping people would get it right. That DVD, I think, contained 11 items. I filmed almost 200 before I got down to those 11 that I decided were good enough to release. So that process for me was it was gut wrenching, right? And I was just done. At that point, I was just done. I just didn't want to be out in the streets. I right before that, a couple months before that, I'd done a gig with Budweiser, which was like 30 or 40 dates over a month, working 10 p.m. to 3 a.m. at bars, right? And then with drunks and loud, it was to release Bud Select, which was like a beer of the Kardashians. So it was like the clubs that I were working at would have DJs like DJ J-Dub and just loud, crazy music and lights. And I get to walk around and do magic. And doing that for 45 or 50 days in a row, you just go, I'm at the other end of it. This isn't why I got into it. I've grown so far through it that right now Budweiser wants to give me this gig. They're going to pay me a lot of money, and that's great. But at the end of it, I'm no longer sharing things with people, right? I'm no longer doing what I wanted to do with magic at that point. I'm just giving away free beers under the guise of a magic trick, right? And I was like, this isn't where I'm going to be. So there was just a lot of things happening in life like that. And then pregnancy happened, and I was like, I need time off. I need time off to do something.
So did you take a full time off from magic? Did you stop performing and stop creating and stop doing that side of things and just focus on becoming a better business person? Or did you keep your hand in when it came to
no, I kept my hand in the local community, and I kept my hand in the consulting. So that's really when the consulting started. When I was working that gig, I started working more for people who were working on their own show, and they would come to town, or they would fly me out, and I would watch their show, and I would create magic specifically for them. And I think the reason it worked so well for me is because I was no longer writing material for myself at all. So that I could learn to write in someone else's voice, which is the number one complaint I have with some consultants that I see, is that I can watch things they've written and I can know that they wrote it.
Yeah.
Because it's not in the characters, it's not in the person's voice. It's not, it's the thing that I think a lot of magicians lack, right? And that is that they see something they like and they do it, even though it doesn't fit their character.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? But they like it. So they just want to jam it into the show. They want to do that new Gregory Wilson pickpocketing routine and just jam it into their show, even though the person they are would never steal stuff.
Yeah.
So how does this premise even make sense in your show? And I see that with a lot of consultants, right? I see a lot of, there's a consultant out there right now who works pretty heavily, and he's really funny. And I see him write really funny routines for people that aren't really funny, And I think those years off, that's what helped me, Craig, is that I wasn't creating content for myself anymore. I started creating content for other people, and I really started to understand. Yeah. Let me take a step back from who they are. It's also the number one reason to hire a consultant, is because when I ask people this, like, who are you? Most people can't define it. They can't define themselves. And when they do define themselves, they define themselves wrong, because they define themselves how they imagine the audience sees them, but that's not how the audience sees them at all, right? Which is why it's important to have somebody watch your stuff. And it doesn't have to be a paid consultant. It might not even be a magician. Like if you know a guy locally who writes plays and directs stuff, and you go see one of his plays, afterwards say, hey man, I'd love you to watch my show and tell me what you think about it. I'll pay you $300, and just have him come watch it and write you a 2-page thing on what he thinks about it. Because he's going to be honest and he's going to be real, but he might tell you that he doesn't understand the rope trick because it didn't match anything else. And you can't see that. There's no way that when you're in it, you can see that, But that's why during those 6 years that I was working that day job, the consulting really started to take off for me. I started to consult with a lot of people and write a lot of amazing content for people. And again, that time is the time that taught me to write material for others, because I wasn't writing anything for myself. So I wasn't writing tricks for myself and then giving them to performers, right? I wasn't like saying, here's the thing I do all the time, do my trick, because that's not consulting, right? That's selling you my trick, right? So that's the time that I got sort of disconnected from that, but still loved magic and still loved methods and still loved all the consulting stuff. It was just the grind of being out in a nightclub late at night, the grind of feeling pressure to release a brand new trick every 4 months, right? That, we see that in the industry a lot. It was that pressure that I just didn't sort of gel with.
And that, although we're going to be talking later on about everything else that you do, that consultancy has stayed with you the rest of your career. You've consulted with a lot of big names, but also you've consulted with a lot of people on Foolus. I know that for a fact.
Yep.
And am I correct in saying that you were a big part of Dwayne's AGT experience? Is that right?
Dustin Tavella.
Dustin.
Yeah.
We get BGT over here, so I've seen it, but yeah. I saw all of it. Amazing stuff. Stuff. Like, absolutely very different to any other magician that I'd ever seen on any sort of talent show. But so good.
Thanks, man. So that's the thing very early on, right? And also I'll have to give a shout out to Danny Garcia, super huge. So I brought him on. I started working with Dustin, and once we got onto like the semifinals or went somewhere in there, I said, look, we need somebody else on this team that's incredible. I called Danny Garcia. He had time to make it on the team. And Danny Garcia and I, man, if anybody in the world needs to hire two consultants to work together, we work together so it's impossible to explain how well we work together. And I don't know why. We think completely different, but we think cohesively together. And it's just like when he and I are in a room together, it's just lightning. And then Dustin is, so when I talk about AGT in general, and I don't know how much you follow, but I'm sure you follow the magicians, you know, Matt Franco wins because he's boy next door. He could be a baseball player and I would love him in my high school, right? He's just that boy next door. He makes magic fun. And before that on TV, we had magicians that were just like, whoa, look at me magicians. He was sort of the first guy who was like, man, I'm just fun. Like, I just love magic and I want to share magic with you. And you're like, yes, he's passionate about magic. He shares that passion and he's just a boy next door. I love him, right? And we hadn't really seen that. Then Shin Lim comes along, and I say Shin Lim for the first time showed America card magic instead of card tricks. Mm-hmm. Because before that, we were dealing cards into piles and we were shuffling and we're doing tricks. And then Shin Lim comes along and, you know, he does magic with cards, which America had never seen. So part of being on that show is creating an archetype or a story or a hook that no one's seen. And that's where Dustin comes along, and he's just a really great storyteller. And really passionate about all the things that he has to talk about. And then life happens. Some amazing things happen, right? He's adopted one child, and he talks about that in his original audition. And then between that and the quarterfinals, he gets to adopt that other child's brother. He gets to bring the brothers together, which just is such a powerful story. But it's a real story that just happened, right? While Dustin is living in LA in a hotel, trying to figure out how to live life and trying to figure out what this AGT thing means, he gets an opportunity to do this other thing. And then we tell that story. And then we start to automatically, the narrative in our head just builds itself. And we go, here's what we can talk about every single time to make this make sense until we get to the finals. And I laugh because he wins AGT with Snowstorm, essentially. On the final episode, he does Snowstorm. But I knew that Snowstorm was a visual, like, and not it was me and Danny and Dustin. We in a room talked about visuals that we knew everyone would love. And, you know, if you remember seeing Copperfield do that on TV 20 years ago, whenever that was, it's such a beautiful moment. And we haven't seen it on TV in 20 years, right? Nobody's doing it. And the people that are doing it with the same sappy, like, I never saw snow story. So we just said, look, if we can take this out of that story and make it feel emotional and special, I don't know that there's a better sort of moment we can end the show on. And then it just all came together and worked out as well as we could. And there was a moment that like, I look at Danny and I go, shit, like, he can win this thing. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen, right? Like, but he, like, right now we are there. We have the trajectory and the energy to allow him to win this thing. And Dustin deserves all the credit. All the words and all the storytelling, all of that is 100% him. Danny and I just sort of, you know, we're choreographers of the magic. You know, we just sort of help decide what magic to do. And I'm also really, from a magic standpoint, I'm really proud because we didn't use pre-show work. One of the things that we sort of happened upon early on is that if you look at the judges on AGT, Howie will just tell a joke, right? That's what he wants to do. He just wants to be funny. It might be at your detriment. If he thinks it's funny, he doesn't care. He's just going to say it to be funny. Simon loves magic, and when it fools him, he freaks out. But as soon as he freaks out, he also always looks at the girls. And if he looks at the girls, then that's their cue to freak out. Mm-hmm. Right? So if you can win Simon over with hard-hitting magic, then you can get three-quarters of the panel on your side immediately if you can win Simon over. So we just made sure we created magic that would always win Simon over. And we did that because Simon's not dumb. If you walk up to him with a spin pad before your performance, he's less fooled, right? He's just less fooled. There are times that you can use pre-show work. And I'm not saying I'm anti-pre-show work. There's times that you could use pre-show work. But it is almost always devalues the trick to the person you pre-show.
Yeah.
Almost always. And if you do that with one of the judges, they're smart enough to know. You do that with Terry, they're smart enough to know. So we wanted to create magic that didn't use any of that. That was like no setup, no pre-show. And I know we can create good magic that way. Like, Daniel Garcia is the best magic consultant in the world. He can make anything happen. We don't need pre-show. Let's not use it. Which is fun because then we have magicians watch the clip and immediately like, pre-show, huh? And you're like, no, man, you're fooled. It wasn't pre-show. You were fooled. So I encourage people, if they haven't seen it, to go watch all the clips from Dustin on AGT this year. And then when they immediately think it's pre-show, to rethink the method a little bit, right? Because it's not.
I can see how passionate you are about consulting. Quick question before we get back. If somebody's watching this and they want to go on TV, or they want to do AGT, or they want to do Fool Us, or whatever it may be, you're available to hire, right? How do they, what would they do? Just reach out to you, send you an email?
Yeah, of course. They can, themagicfirm.com is where they can send a contact form for all of that stuff. If they just go to themagicfirm.com, there'll be a contact form there. They can write into me, and then we can have a discussion about what they're really trying to do, what their goals are, set up a call, and then we just go from there. You got it.
Perfect. So going back, you've been doing consultancy. You've been working in this business for 6 years, learning how to be less of a hustler and more of a business person. You've been promoted. You're smashing it with consultancy work. Everything's good. 6 years in, you leave. I think you said 6 years. What was the purpose for leaving? Was that you kind of thought, I've got what I've got out of this. I want to get back into what I love. The consultancy is going great. What was the decision to leave this business that had promoted you so many times?
I think that's it. I was through the learning process, right? I'd learned everything from that business that I thought I could learn. I'd sort of, I wouldn't say I've hit the ceiling there, but like I'd hit the ceiling there, and I was just ready for a change in my life and ready to go back to magic. Also, the consulting had sort of taken off. So I was getting to a point where I would have to say no to consulting gigs because I had to work that weekend or because I had something I had to do. So it was sort of this balance and structure. And then it all happens by accident somehow. Somehow I had been writing a business plan for the magic firm, and the business plan was to be to just do conventions. I wanted to be a magic shop that just went to conventions called the Magic Firm. We would set up and sell products, but every product we had would come with a customer service guarantee, right? It would be, by the Magic Firm. We guarantee that you'd enjoy the product and that it wouldn't break. And then we would go to people like Craig and say, hey, we want to sell your new product at our table, and we'll stamp it. All you have to do is sell it to us for 50% off and sell us 100 units for the Magic Live, and then we'll promote it. And if you've got another product, we can even pre-promote it. So it was this whole business plan that I'd written to do sort of live touring pitch booths. And it made money on paper. I was like, I can do this. And then I was at a magic convention, and Luke Dancy walks up and says, hey, do you know a jar who owns Penguin? And I was like, no, not at all. And he said, well, let me go introduce you. And I'd done a Penguin Live lecture at this point, but I'd never met a jar, right? So Luke walks up and introduces me to a jar. And I forget what he says, but he says something about how he gives me an intro like you did. That's just like way beyond who I really am, And I think he might mention that I'm one of the best pitch man he's ever seen. I don't remember. And then Jar offers me a seat. We sit down, and we start talking. And he says, so what do you like? What do you do? What are you passionate about? And I explained him that I'm passionate about being outnumbered, surrounded, and having people throw money at me. And he says, and you think you can make, and I sort of mentioned the Magic Firm thing, because I think I'm going to eventually try to get products from Penguin at a discount so I can sell them at these live things. So I'm sort of soft pitching him on that. And then he sort of says, so why wouldn't you just do this for my company? And how would it make money? And I go, well, I happen to have a 32-page comprehensive business plan. Let's talk. that was sort of the thing. And then, I don't know, a month later, he flew me to Blackpool for the, hired me, flew me to Blackpool. I quit the job and started working for Penguin Magic, running all their live events. So I was doing all their conventions at the time, which eventually become the Magic Expos, which eventually become the Magic Maxes and all that sort of stuff before COVID.
And is that when you were releasing some stuff through Penguin as well at the time, weren't you? Most recently, my favorite packet trick of all time, Definitely Not Marked.
Yes, yeah. So one of the weird parts about working for Penguin was that I put the brakes on a lot of my projects, because while I was working for them, any project that I released couldn't be self-published, right? They had to have the rights to publish the thing, which sort of means that that Position Impossible, one of my most popular tricks, is now sort of, I only make royalties on that instead of making, full income on that, which is fine. I'm not bitter about it. We still have a great relationship and everything. But as soon as I did that, I sort of felt like I need to hold back some of my other products because I want full ownership of my products. If I believe my products are good, then I should always have full ownership of them, right? Because if I believe they're good, then they're always going to generate income. Position Impossible is going to sell as well in 5 years as it did last year, right? So it only makes sense to always be able to make money on it. So I started to slow down then, but that's when I did a couple of projects with Penguin. Would be at that point. I did Position Impossible. I did Definitely Not Marked. I did a couple other small things for them. Yeah.
And under your kind of supervision, the live events with Penguin just absolutely went through the roof. Like it became really, really popular. How long were you at Penguin before you decided to walk away?
Again, I'm no good at things like that, but I would say 4 years, maybe 5 years.
And did you walk away because you were like, same reason as before, I'm making Penguin a lot of money here, let's get back on track, let's get back onto making me money, the magic firm? Was that the reason?
Kind of, but it was also another one of those things where I was just sort of, I was sort of burnt and through it, right? 1 year at Penguin, I did 100, between Penguin and consulting, I think I did 150 days on the road that year. And it's just a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work to be on the road for 150 days when you've got a wife and 2 kids at home. Kids were 8 and 10 at the time, I think. So it was just a lot of work to sort of do all that stuff. Again, when I would get home, I could be with the kids. I could put them on the bus and get them off the bus, right? Because when I was home, I was home. But that was 150 days that I was actually gone and out of the house. And for me, that's also, every one of these decisions I'm making, Craig, are all building blocks, right? I don't know if it's my board game background, but everything I consider, who does this make me at the end of it? The reason I got the job at the Magic Shop was to educate myself on magic with all the books. The reason I got my job at the hardware store was to sort of educate myself on business. The reason I got the job with Penguin Magic is to get my name reestablished in the magic industry, right? To have people talking about me and what I can do. And in the process of doing 150 days on the road, that means that I met 6,000 magicians and shook hands with them and said hi to them. And they left that conversation seeing the value that I had, right? And that's what I'm doing. I'm building stock in my brand and stock in my value so that when I release the FPS wallet after Penguin's gone, the magic industry immediately takes to it. And they go, I really like that guy. Let's support him. And then that's what helps those things be successful, right? So I was really at that point just sort of building sort of value in my portfolio by meeting a bunch of magicians, right? And then end up leaving eventually because of the crazy thing that becomes the story of how this magic shop starts, the current location that we're in when we go back to doing magic full time. And that is essentially that I was talking about opening a magic shop. I was looking around at spaces. I wasn't serious about it. But every time I'd write the business plan and try to break it, it wouldn't break. I would be like, yeah, but what if worldwide pandemic wasn't in those bingo cards? but every time I tried to break it, I just couldn't. Every time I tried to break it, it would still make enough money for me to survive on paper. And then I'm with a client in town at a little restaurant. So we're in this little town in Indiana called New Albany, Indiana. I want to say a population of 70,000. I'm making that number up, but it's tiny. It's probably more like 30,000. Tiny town. And I'm having dinner with a client and the mayor walks past and I notice it, like recognize him only because he's on billboards, right? Like I've never, whatever. And then he comes back in and he goes, hey man, I just want to let you know, I'm a customer of yours. And I go, oh yeah, that's really cool, man. I'm glad that you like, and I think he's talking about the hardware store. because that was also in the same small town. And I go, yeah, man, that's really great. We appreciate the support. He goes, yeah, I really like your torn and restored thing. And I go, wait, you huh? And he says to me essentially, yes, you're with Penguin Magic. I like Penguin Magic. I buy a lot of stuff from them. And this is when I was sort of still with Penguin Magic, but he's like, so what are you guys in town for? And I was like, so what happens is he thinks that we're doing events traveling the country and that we just stopped in this little town to have lunch. And he just happened to see us there. Right. And I had cards out on the table. I don't even think you would have recognized this if I didn't have playing cards on the table, right? But I had playing cards on the table. So I recognized this. And then I was like, well, no, I live like 3 blocks from here. I'm thinking about opening a magic shop. And he's like, you should do this. Let's talk. And that was the end of it, right? Like, okay, the mayor's on my side. I can make this happen.
Wow.
Yeah, so crazy.
That is crazy.
Yeah. Man. And now the city altogether has been, you know, I don't say this because I'm being cocky and I hope it doesn't sound that way, but like we're in a small enough town. So the fact that I can bring people that have been on Fool Us to our 30-seat theater, right? The fact that I can bring Dustin Tavella, who was won America's Got Talent, into this 30-seat theater. And, you know, the fact that I can have these people in the spot means that we're a pretty amazing venue for the community. So they support us really heavily, right? The community here is amazing. Not just the mayor, but the local development and all the restaurants and all the places. And, you know, it's been incredible because we're not a little fish in a big sea, right? We're a little fish in a little sea. So it's just all of that's been amazing, right? And it doesn't hurt that I can call the mayor if I get a parking ticket or something.
Perk of the job, right? That's amazing. So you open up the magic shop, and there's a theater in there as well, right? So you're obviously doing shows in there. Is that where you're? Yeah, and obviously you're still consulting.
Sure.
Are you performing less now? Because obviously you're running a business. You're doing this. Obviously you're performing in the theater, but you're performing in the theater. You're running a magic shop. You're consulting for other people. There's a lot of stuff going on. You're creating. Do your kind of gigging life, has that kind of fallen back on the wayside a little bit because you've got so much other stuff to juggle?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't do. If somebody called me tomorrow and they said, we want you to do a corporate gig in Austin, Texas, I would say, oh, let me send you a guy. And I would take one of my performers that are on my roster and I would send them and I would keep the 20% booking fee and never leave the house, right? And also because I know that performer is better than, is going to do a better job than I would do because I'm not doing it enough, right? Because I don't have a 25-minute stand-up show for up to 1,200 people, but I have 11 clients that do. And I can call a client and say, hey, I need you to do this thing and it'll get done and get done better. I'm giving the buyer a better performance, I think, because I'm just, not that I'm rusty, but it's also just not what I remember, Craig. I'm trying to do what I love to do. And that's outnumbered and surrounded. It's not on stage in front of 1,200 people. So now that I'm in a position to pick my work, I just pick my work. And the work that I do is like Brian Brushwood hires me every year. He does a big con convention and I get to pitch at his table. Absolutely love it. That thing is phenomenal. But again, it's me at a table pitching magic. That's what I love. I love that moment. I don't necessarily love, a banquet hall with 10 top tables and a big screen and 1,200 people who are wondering if they got a Christmas bonus. It's just not my jam and not where I want to be,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's also why we built the theater here. The theater here is 30 seats, right? But it's because I want to build a space where everyone is in the performance, where everyone, and I think when you get, I have a thing I talk about in my book. Have you read Plots, Ploys, and Other Cons?
Yes, I have.
Okay, so the cold coin is my favorite trick I've ever created. And it's my favorite trick because it's a trick you do for one person when you all are alone. And I think it's as strong as magic can get. Because to me, if magic is art, it's about me communicating something to you.
Yeah.
And as soon as we add a person, an outside observer to you, you no longer sort of experience the moment of astonishment the way that you should. Because if your bro is beside you and that trick was going to make you cry, you don't.
Yeah. Right?
You sort of buck up and or you look at them and go, I wasn't fooled. Or when there's someone else in that room with you, it gives you the opportunity to communicate yourself out of the impossibility, to anchor in with someone else, and to have a verbal, nonverbal, some form of communication with someone. When it's just you and I just blankly stare at you, David Blaine style, that uncomfort keeps you in the astonishment for longer.
Yeah.
Only to say, when you add 5 more people, it's diluted a little bit more. When you add 20 more people, a little bit more. When you add 1,199 other people, it's just diluted a little bit more. Right? Yeah. And feels less magical. Not that I think there's a point, and I think we all have to openly admit this, and we talk about it in consulting a lot. There's a point when magic becomes about entertainment more than about magic because of the size of the crowd. And I don't think we can overcome that. Some people have. Copperfield might overcome it in his current show. There's a moment in that new show where I feel like a kid, and I'm just laughing hysterically in emotional impossibility. I'm sort of like, I feel like I'm, but most other people can't do it. Most other people just need to do a funny rope trick, but nobody leaves and goes, man, I can't believe that rope really just like magically and incredibly healed itself back together. No one leaves the rope trick thinking that, no. But they like the jokes in the rope trick. Right.
Yeah.
I just want to create a moment between you and I that's impossible, right? And that's hard to do with 1,199 people watching.
Yeah, I see that. I absolutely see that. Yeah, totally see that. Yeah, I get it.
And it doesn't. Yeah. I don't mean that commercial magic, right? That entertaining commercial magic is a bad thing at all. I think they're just 2 completely different things, right? That's it. 2 completely different spaces. And there are times that it makes it, right? Like I work with Daniel Martin on The Invisible Man. The Invisible Man is maybe the only stage piece that I've ever seen anybody be able to do that puts a single person in an absolute moment of astonishment while 1,199 other people watch. It's the only thing I've ever created or worked on that can get you there. And when you see it happen, if people don't know, they should go look at it. It's probably invisibleman.info. It's a really powerful trick, and everybody gets something incredible out of it. And I think a lot of people miss how powerful it is. But it's one of those rare cases where you can have somebody have genuine astonishment on stage and not just laugh because the rope's back together again,
Yeah, I'm with you. 100%. And I think it's important that all performers know what they want to get out of their magic, because one person might want something completely different to somebody else, and it's about finding yourself. And this is where you are after all these years and all these ups and all these downs and all these ins and all these outs. This is where you are right now, but it's come through a lot of experience and trial runs and practice.
And I might not be here in 3 years, right? In 3 years, I might have another outlook, right? But the real issue that I have with it is, and this is why I'm trying to be careful about the way that I express this, is when somebody else yucks someone else's yum, right? When somebody else says, no, you can't just be funny. That's not magic. No, you can be anything you want. Just think about what you're being, right? And if you just want to be a comedian who does magical things, I have no problem with that. And define yourself as a magician still. I have no problem with it. Get what you want out of it. I also talk about sort of, it frustrates me when I see people who sort of knock the Crayola crowns out of children's hands. And what I mean by that is a young kid who comes up and he does magic tricks and he's not good yet, but somebody sees him perform, and instead of telling him it was a good job and helping him out, they go, you shouldn't perform anymore because you're double lift flashes. And you're like, no, like we need to encourage everyone, anyone who's interested in art, anyone who wants to perform magic, we need to encourage all of them to find what they're going to get out of it. And that also means that they can sit in their bedroom and just do card tricks and never share them with anyone. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have value to them, and it does. Yeah. They just have to find their value. But what sort of frustrates me is we sometimes see the community, post or send around in these text groups videos of people not doing great tricks and making fun of them. And I have no time for it because a lot of times the people watching those tricks are enjoying the trick, right? So yeah. It's just frustrating when we sort of build. I put a post up a couple of weeks ago. I forgot what it was about, but something about gatekeepers, right? Like, to hell with gatekeepers. You don't need a gatekeeper to accept you at all. just do what you love doing and be passionate about it in any form that it is. Because like gatekeeping is bullshit anywhere and everywhere. And nobody owns magic. And if we do own magic and there are gatekeepers that we let exist, then we've stopped all creativity. They've said this is good as it will ever be and will never go up from there. Because somebody in some magic club somewhere would have said to Shin Lim, smoke coming out of your mouth is stupid. Why are you doing that? And he would have stopped, right? And you know what? The first time he did it, it was probably stupid. And they were probably right. But that's not the point, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, drives me crazy.
No, I completely understand. Yeah, I totally get it. And a lot of the time, the people that are making those comments are completely faceless and you know, not prepared to let people know what their real name is, but they're prepared to give their opinion out, normally because they don't have any experience or ability themselves a lot of the time. Sure. With the magic firm, so you set up the shop and you set up the theatre. Was the plan always to go online? Because the magic firm has now got a huge presence online. You know, you're becoming more and more popular every single day. And obviously, outside of being an online shop, you've released through Murphy's and therefore to all magic dealers some incredible products. FPS wallet, we gave it a great review. FPS coin wallet, gave it a great review. 4K color box, gave it a great review, and so on and so forth. So, like, was that the plan originally to go online as well, or was that something that happened organically?
Yeah, no, I mean, part of the hustle in everyday life, right, is that we live in a world where you have to be selling online, right? You have to. So we're going to have to sell online and we're going to have to set it up. But really, that wasn't in the business plan as much as it happened organically, because when I was in Vegas and had just finished filming Fool Us, and on the plane ride home, they shut down the United States, right? We were the last show to film in Vegas, the last performance to happen in Vegas. They wrapped filming for Fool Us. And then as I'm flying home, they shut down all businesses. At that point, I'd had a magic shop I just opened 7 months before this. And I'm now being told that it won't be open for at least a month. I won't be able to open my doors. And I go, well, this isn't ideal to have a business that can't run and still have to pay rent and figure things out. So when I got home, I immediately went to work the next day. I posted on the website that we're starting FaceTime hours, and I put my phone number out there. And people would call me on the phone, and I would walk them around FaceTime like they were in the magic shop, and I would demo magic for them, and I would show them magic, and then we would ship it out to them. Because we didn't really have a website, and we didn't really have all that built. We knew at some point we would build it. We just weren't, that was in sort of business plan 3.0, and we were still in 1.0 of just getting the doors open. And being able to even like make cash deposits and figure out how to do day operations, right? But now we're just thrown into the middle of it. So I immediately start doing these FaceTime calls, and it goes fairly well for the first week and a half, but people are on the phone way too long, because just like these conversations, you know, I talk a lot. So sometimes I'm on a FaceTime call and it's 75 minutes and I've got 3 more people waiting for calls back, right? So it wasn't ideal, but it was the only thing I knew, right? The only thing I knew was like, the people that want to come see me can still come see me. We'll just do it in this weird, awkward way. And then once that was pretty successful, on about day 5 of that, I went, we need a website that can sell stuff. Let me figure that out. And then I learned to build a website in the next 9 days, I think, nonstop, 42 Red Bulls, 9 days, built the website and had it up and selling stuff. And then by the end of the first month, we'd done, you know, quadruple the revenue on the website that we'd ever done in the walk-in business in the shop. Because I tried to build a website that feels like a brick and mortar magic shop, which means you're not buying from a website when you buy from us. You're buying from an individual. That individual is me. So on the website, there's a place where you can guest chat. And when you send that message, my phone goes bing bong and Brent Braun replies to your question. And then on the top, there's a text number you can text. And when you text me, my phone goes bing bong and you've texted me and I can text you back. And what that means is if you ask about a color of a new deck of cards, I'll send you a video going, hey, Craig, it's me in the shop. Here's the deck you were asking about. I hope that answers your color question. Thanks, man. I hope to see you soon. Click. Because that's what I want. I don't want to be the world's largest magic shop. I have no intent on being the world's largest magic shop. I hope to only ever have 2 employees, myself and my wife. That's the plan. But that means you're buying into my time, right? You're buying into because you are literally helping pay my rent and feed my kids. I owe you more than maybe a big box does, right? And I appreciate you more, right? I can try harder because you have more value in my life. I think you do. If you spend $40 with me, there's actually some like cool little Etsy memes and stuff about this, and I'm not gonna be able to quote them. But when you buy something from a local business owner, when you spend $40 with them, I'm sitting at my table in my kitchen with my kids, playing a board game, and my phone goes ching ching, and my kids smile. And I hook up the phone and I go, we just made $40, and we all clap. And then we put away the phone.
Yeah.
And that's the value you have in my life. Spend $40 with one of those other companies. It's invisible. Nobody knows. Nobody cares. So then when you get a product that's bent, broken, defective, doesn't work, and you try to email them back or try to call them or try to reach out to them, good luck. And that's just the advantage I have, right? The advantage they have is that they can ship worldwide for free. And they have a lot of advantages as well. I just want my advantage to be that, hey, it's me. That's the only advantage I've got,
I love that. And on the back of that, and we've mentioned this before we started filming, you're one of the only people that I know that are trying to do the same thing as me, which is taking a stand against what's happening in the industry at the moment and taking a stand against products that are coming out that are just not fit for purpose. I mean, as I said to you off camera, every single trick that you bring out is top quality and well thought out, and it's always got a good tutorial, and it's always really well made. But unfortunately, that's not holding true in the industry. And it's amazing to see that a dealer, of course, that's what you are, you're a magic dealer, is stepping up and going, well, this isn't acceptable. This is something that we need to actually address. I mean, do you want to talk about that? Because you're doing a stellar job.
I think that we're running into it, and it started happening, I don't know, 5 or 6 years ago. The industry started to push into this idea that it is okay to lie to customers and okay to sell products that as you said, aren't fit. They don't work. They've never been used. It's very obvious to me when I open a product and I see the guy teaching it. I know guys that use the products. You can tell when he says, well, and you might be able to do this. And another thing we thought you could do is this. And I'm like, but you've never done any of that in front of real people, but you're selling this as a product? The place that becomes a lie is in the demo video, they say the best magic trick that's ever been. How is it the best magic trick? How do we know that if no one's ever even seen it, right? But we're in this weird part where magic manufacturers think it's okay to lie to people to sell a product. And then when the people bought the lie, they oftentimes feel bad that they thought the trick worked a different way, or that it was their fault for having bought the lie. So they continue to buy from that manufacturer. And it's just, it's sad. And I'm like you, which is why I love your rant videos. Like, the one recent where you snapped the thing over your knee and threw it away. Like, yes, 100%. Because that thing there's no way anyone built that to use it in the real world. They're building it specifically as a magic product, and that is a shit way to treat your customers, right? Like, it's just not. And for me, I'm passionate about it because I have kids that are 14 years old, Craig, that save up their allowance for 2.5 months to go on to the website and buy that product, knowing nothing about it, but expecting it to look like the demo looks. And when they're not the same thing at all, it's so frustrating to me. It's the most frustrating thing ever, which is why we started doing the unboxing videos and trying to get people real information. Look, if you're trying to buy something, I shouldn't have to lie to you to sell it to you. Let's
talk about those unboxing videos because they are incredible. I mean, they are incredible. You're basically just in a closed group away from anywhere else on the internet. You're unboxing particular tricks and saying, look, this is what you get. This is how it works. And in giving your customers, because the people in that group are your customers, the knowledge they need to decide whether or not that they actually want that trick and if it actually does what they expect it to do. I love that. Yeah.
And I sort of mentioned it too before. It's the idea of how I would treat you if you came in the magic shop. If you came in that, but that doesn't happen in the real world. An example that I gave you earlier is if somebody comes if you see online somebody floating a dollar bill, right? And they're doing this crazy, incredible thing, and it's $100. There's no way that anybody should be buying that as their first introduction to invisible thread, right? Your introduction to invisible thread shouldn't be $100, $150 thread. But if you don't know invisible thread and you don't know systems and you don't know what you're buying, you think that it's a bill that will just float, and you think it's magnets and air pressure and all these things that it's not, which means you're wasting your money. But if you came into the magic shop, like young kid comes into the magic shop today and he goes, I saved up $150 to buy this trick, and they show me a video of a thread. I say, you know what, that's great, but I don't think you're really ready for that one. Let me sell you this. And I sell them loose thread, and I explain to them how it works and what it does. And once you learn to do this and you were good at this, you come back and see me and I'll sell you that $150 reel and you'll be crushing with it. But right now you're not ready. And 90% of those kids are never going to come back for the $150 reel. And in my mind, I saved them $130. But then I go, but let me show you this. It's called the rising card deck. It's full stop, one of the best tricks that you can do with animation that's all self-contained and inside of the deck, and you will crush your friends with it and not worry about lighting conditions and not worry about anything, and it'll be great. And it'll rise in their hands and they'll freak out and they go, wow, I didn't even know that existed. And you know what? You also need scotch and soda. Let me sell you a scotch and soda. And when that kid leaves with $150, he will be set up to succeed in magic for his friends. He won't be set up to go into his bedroom, break a thread once and go, this magic is stupid, right? Because that's my goal. It's the magic firm sort of motto, right? Is we talk about making better magic. That's it. I just want people to do better magic, because if you leave my shop and when you show your friends at school magic tricks that are better than the one that you didn't show them because you broke $150 worth of thread in your bedroom, more of your friends are likely to get interested in magic and come into my shop. Interested in magic and come to my shows. Interested in magic and watch the television shows I can consult on. Interested in magic and buy at Penguin Magic. I don't care where they buy. I just want the pie that is the magic industry to grow in a positive way, because I get a little slice of it. But as that pie grows in a positive way, my little slice is naturally getting bigger because the pie is getting bigger. But to do that, I need people out there doing magic. I need that kid who thought he wanted the newest, coolest magic trick. I need him to buy scotch and soda is what I need. Right?
And that kid could be the next Shin Lim.
For sure.
But if he goes away with a trick that he gets ultimately disappointed with, he might quit magic, and then we've lost him. As a dealer, you have responsibilities that,
sure.
And I think a lot of dealers,
I've been doing this long enough that I had people that came up to the Penguin booth that were 11 years old, and now they're on Fool Us as 20-year-old kids, right? Those kids who came up and could have had a bad experience, and they could have said, spend me that $150 reel that I have no business buying. And I could have just said, oh, that's $150. That's a big sale. Let me make transaction. But instead I went, no, that's not what we're doing. Here's scotch and soda. Here's rising card. Here's some loops to get you started. And here's a package of rubber bands. Give me your $150. And he's so much further ahead than he would have been had I sold him something that he hated, right? Something that maybe even honestly, definitely in the trailer looks better than the other 4 items I gave him, right? Because the trailer for that $150 floating thing looks ridiculous. I haven't seen a good trailer for scotch and soda ever. Right? Yeah, we should work on that. Actually, that's a good idea.
That's very true. Actually, yeah, I've never seen a good one. So what can producers do? The producers that are out there, because you had a really good point that you said to me off camera, where we should give people a chance once, but then after the second chance, which I thought was a really good point. What can producers do to make sure that they're doing everything right? Because to be honest, there are ones out there that are just, like S Magic that bought out the N pad that you just referenced. And, we don't need to name names. There's so many out there that are just doing things wrong. What can we do as an industry, and what can they do to make everything better? Because we need to improve. We just need to.
Maybe this is a thing that you and I should talk about off camera.
Yeah.
But what they need is an honest 10. I think they need 10 performers who they either hire on retainer for $100 a month or don't even hire. But they need a list of 10 performers who are doing stuff in the real world. And when they get to the prototyping stage, they need to order 10 prototypes and send them to those 10 performers and let those 10 performers work through that idea from the bottom to the top, and then take that feedback, good, bad, or indifferent, right? Like, I think they need more people who are actually performing these ideas. And we talked about this off camera a little bit. Like, I would do it for free. We can't do it for free for everyone, right? If we're going to become the 10 pack and this is now becoming a job, that's a different thing. But if somebody reached out to me tomorrow and they said, hey, Brent, I'm producing this Sharpie that's does something, right? This Sharpie that whatever, folds and then explodes. Great. I want to send you one for free. Tell me what you think. Yes. Okay. Send me one for free. I will 100%. You know, I'm in the process right now of working on a brand new wallet. This has already happened. I've already sent around prototypes to performers because I want them to get their hands on it. Because I want one of them to call me and go, you know what really sucks about this? That's what I want. More than anything in the world. I want 10 of those people. I want one of them to call me and goes, here's what I really hate about it. Because if I can fix that, I want to fix it now. I don't want to fix it after I spent $30,000 putting the product out. Because once I've spent the money, I have to sell the lie. Right?
Yeah.
Right. We had this happen. One of the products that I gave a horrible review to was a Sharpie with the little Sharpie clip that you pull out and it snaps back in to make the two hearts. You remember this thing?
Oh, yeah. I gave it a bad review as well.
I forgot what it was called, but
I remember it was by Jimmy Strange, I think. I can't remember it. Yeah.
But when the Sharpie cap that they provide doesn't even fit onto a Sharpie.
No.
It doesn't fit. They tell you in the tutorial to take black electrical tape and put it along the inside so the lid will fit. That's what happens when you don't think a product all the way through or you don't build it properly. And what happens is those 10,000 units showed up, or how many ever they ordered, and somebody went, shit, this is a problem. And then somebody in that company went, ship them. Right? Yeah. Like somebody made that decision. Somebody just went, it doesn't matter. We've already got a bunch of money in it. We're not going to make them the right way. That would be crazy. Just ship them. And that's the problem. So they need to avoid that. And you avoid that by getting multiple prototypes and making sure you checked all the boxes. And, you know, I think that they just need to care more. That's what I talk about all the time in the unboxing videos. They just need to care more. I want them to care more about the products they're putting out. Part of caring is making sure that they're getting them in the hands of people who actually use these things and do these things. And it's not unusual, especially in my unboxing videos. It's not unusual for me to do an unboxing and then at the end of the unboxing, say, here's the way I would do it though, and create a much better handling that I just give to my customers because I've thought about it for 2 days. And then I'm like, if I thought about this in 2 days, why did no one else think about this? Like, you know, that's the other thing that's weird. When they have this whole, it gets better when you go to the Facebook group, right? Like the product's not good. We released it so fast, we didn't have all the information, but it gets better if you go to the Facebook group. And I go, I don't know that I like that because I have, again, 11-year-old kids that come in that don't have Facebook. And now they're losing 60% of the value of the product. You know, with the Magic Firm, all of our videos are Vimeo videos on a single page for every product. And when I come up with a better idea, I add it to the page. You don't need to join the Facebook group. I just add the idea to the page. And now if you go, the FPS wallet was released with like 5 different things with it. Now it's at 9. And there are just more videos there. So all the content is there, not hidden behind something that's outwardly sourced that you've got to join and be involved with, right? It's, nope, go to that .com tutorial download thing and it's there, you know, which is how that should be too, right? Because it sort of drives me nuts that like, you're selling me half of a product and saying, oh, no, there was a problem with it, but we explained how to fix that in the Facebook group. And I go, I don't have time for that, right? Like, so weird. Mm-hmm.
No, I completely agree. And I think part of the problem is, it's like you said, you hit the nail on the head. There's trick back in the day when it was L&L Publishing and tricks came out very infrequently. You know that if you had somebody like Michael Amar put out a set of DVDs, that is going to be stuff that he's worked. These days, how many tricks come out where you can just tell that they've never performed it in the real world? They've never done it for real people, which is why there's no live performances. There's no reason why every trick that comes out these days shouldn't have live performances. We all have a high-tech camera that we carry around with us everywhere. It is a piece of piss to go out to a bar and just say, hold that, film this, look at this trick, job done. but there's no reason why every project should have a live performance. But the problem is, and it's a big warning sign for me, when I see a project and there's no live performance, it's like, well, why is there no live performance?
Sure.
Yeah.
And some of that is there's no live performance because they created the product on Wednesday and they're going to be selling it on Friday. And there's just not enough time to get a live performance when you create a thing Wednesday and sell it on Friday. There's just not enough time in there to make that happen, right? Which is how it's ridiculous, because I guarantee the thing that you created on Wednesday might be good and it might be sellable on Friday, but it's never going to be as good as it is if you sell it 7 Fridays from now, right? If you literally, build the stew and let it stew and let it think and use it enough and find the problems and perform it, or send it out to people like you and I who will perform it, right? I own a brick and mortar magic shop. You send me a new prototype of a product and I can do it 30 times in one day, and I can have more data points than you're going to have in a month and a half, right? And I can have real data points. I can have data points from actual magicians. I can have data points from lay people. I can have data points from my mother. I can have any data points we want anywhere because I'm performing things a lot, which is what it takes, right? Like, the only way to know if a thing is good is to do it a lot in front of people. And there are manufacturers out there right now that aren't even magicians, right? They're just, I don't know how they got into this, and I don't know why they're selling us stuff, but it's just the amount of tricks that come out that are just like, could be done with a thumb tip and it would be the same trick or better, but they're just trying to think of a new way to sell it. And how I think they think about how to make the deceptive video before they create the product.
Yeah.
Right? I have an idea for something that could fool you on video. That'll be the product. Right? Which is such a bizarre way to create magic. I don't know. Which is why I appreciate you fighting the good fight, right? I appreciate you being out there and giving them hell, because they deserve it, And the thing I sort of mentioned, we won't mention any names, but I mentioned it earlier before we got in here. There are some manufacturers that we saw heavily releasing products a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, that we don't see anymore. And I think that's what our fight is doing. I think us keeping people from buying those products are becoming less and less profitable every time they release one, because the first time we were all dumb and they sold 2,000 units. And the second time we were a little smarter and they sold 1,600. And now they're selling ones where they sell 200 and 300 units. And now it's just not worth their value anymore. And that's why we have to be cautious. If manufacturers are taking advantage of us, when it's the third time you've seen that a product from that company that's deceptive, just don't buy it. Just stop buying it. Because if we continue to feed that machine, it's going to continue to just come eat. And that's all it cares about,
Exactly. And it's a message to producers out there, continue to release bad magic. You're going to have people like Brent, who's going to tell people about it in his Facebook group. You're going to have people like me that's going to smash it over my knee and throw it in the bin. It's what's going to happen, right? We can fix it. We can fix it. It can get better.
And we're not doing that to be aggressive towards them. We're doing that to protect the buyers, right? We're doing that because I don't want them to stop producing magic. I want them to care more. That's it. I want them to care more about what they're producing. And that might mean slow down the release by 3 months by letting other people perform it, by getting the mold injection done right, by throwing away the first batch and ordering a second batch that actually works, right? That's all part of the R&D cost, and it's all part of business. But they just have to care enough when they get to that part. The amount of times I see tricks released where at the end you can tell, like, if they would have thought one more step and just added a drop of glue here, this wouldn't have failed. But that was too much work for them. And that's so frustrating to me when they get 99% of it right. But then somebody goes, don't worry about it. We don't want to do it. Like, it's the most frustrating thing.
I agree.
The most frustrating thing is deceptive advertising. That, when they're blatantly lying, right? That's when they're saying no equivoque and then telling you that you can only use a red card, right? That's the stuff that I just have no time for. Those are the most frustrating ones. And it befuddles me that we're still in 2021, we're still seeing that from magic manufacturers, right? We had a couple of big ones this year, I think, that were just complete lies. And man, from big companies, I don't understand how somebody doesn't immediately go, maybe we shouldn't lie about it. Maybe we should just sell the product on its own merits. Maybe we should create a product that's good enough that we don't have to lie to sell it.
Well, that's the thing. If you feel the need to lie about your product in the trailer, maybe it shouldn't be a product in the first place. Maybe you should fix it so that you don't have to lie about it and you can be honest about it, and then it won't be an issue.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. The other thing we're seeing, and I'm sure you're seeing it on your end, I've seen some ad copy change. Sometimes I'll put out a rant video and I'll talk shit about this section. In the ad copy, they say this. This is not true. And then 5 hours later, I go back to that magic shop and that manufacturer has removed that line, right? So they're paying attention. They're paying attention to us, right? They know that we're out there, or they know we're out there fighting the good fight. And sometimes they write that ad copy and somebody makes a bad decision. But when they fix it, it makes me giddy inside, right? To just know, like, we're making things better a little bit, you know?
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you one more question, which is, what's next from you? Because I know you're very, very ambitious, despite the fact that you've evolved over your life. You're still that hustler in that bar. You know, you're still that guy, and I know that you've got lots of plans and lots of goals. The magic firm's doing great. You've set up and survived the business during a pandemic, and you know, hopefully we're getting to the end of that soon. What are the goals for you as a person, for your company? Is there anything left on your magical bucket list that you haven't yet hit that you'd like to achieve?
I don't know, right? I mean, I'm pretty happy with where I'm at right now. You know, I'm sort of accomplishing everything I want to accomplish, and I'm releasing the products that I want to release with no pressure to have something out by next week so I can pay rent. You know, I can sort of slowly develop these things and let them stick around. I'm developing them entirely myself, which means I get to write the ad copy and I get to do the videos to make sure it includes everything. And I'm really trying to, from the manufacturing standpoint, I'm really happy with where I'm at. From the magic shop, you know, we're not currently doing shows in the theater, but hopefully the pandemic comes through. Once we get those back up and running, that'll be great for me. Demoing magic's great. You know, right now I'm in a really comfortable spot. You know, if anything, it would be, you know, I don't know that it can exist, and I don't know that I have the time or you have the time, or that this is a thing that could exist. But there's ideas of a certification for magic tricks, right? Where somebody could send you and I, or you and I and 3 people, or a group of people, or whatever that is, a magic trick before they release it, and know in pure confidentiality, we'll look at the product, we'll make recommendations, and if it meets this standard, we will gold stamp it, right? Magic Firm certified, Craig and Brent certified, USDF, something. Because there is that now. Murphy's sort of has that with their black label. That's what that's designed to do. But that's also sort of disingenuous, because that's also the manufacturer black labeling their own product, right? So it feels a little, feels a little weird to be like, yes, I approve of my own product, but I'm sure you would. And it doesn't mean that the black label doesn't mean anything, because again, also a lot of those products they put out are great, and I don't think I've seen many dogs come through that pipeline. So they are doing well there. But that would be an idea of having a group of magicians that would make it easy for manufacturers to know that they're doing the right thing. I don't know that it has value, because now all of a sudden we're talking about running another company where we have to run ads to explain to people what the certification is and why it's important and how it has value and what that means. And then we're also running risk that we're going to certify a trick that isn't great. And now all of a sudden we lose all of our credibility, right? So that is a hard thing to do. But the next big thing for me is just to continue the fight, continue to make magic manufacturers more honest and more accountable, right? That's my continued goal, right?
Would people that are watching this, we've talked about you working with them on a consultancy basis. Would the magic firm ever release somebody else's product? Would they ever do a Penguin or a Murphy's? If somebody's got a trick that they really believe in, can they come to you and say, look, this is my trick? So
we consult on releasing as well, but I do it in a very interesting way, Craig, because as I said earlier, if an idea is good, I believe the creator should own it forever.
Yeah.
So I don't do what Penguin would do. I don't do what Vanishing Ink or Murphy's would do. If you bring a product to me, I don't want to buy the product, and I don't want to release it as a Magic Firm product. I want you to pay me to consult on the product. We'll make the best possible product that we can, and then you'll put it out, right? And I've done that with, there are probably 15 or 20 products in the industry that I've worked on that you'll have no idea I've worked on. Because people just come to me and they go, I don't know how to make this thing. And I go, okay, I'll get it 3D printed. I'll source the manufacturing. I'll do all of the back end work. And then you release it and sell it yourself. Because I don't want to be involved in, I want you to always own your own project. That's the number one thing for me, because that's where you found value. But I also don't want to be involved in the manufacturing, distribution, handling, all the hardest part of magic manufacturing is that. Pre-releasing it in June, hoping it's going to be here by July, making sure that it ships on the 15th, then it gets lost, then you've got to that sort of supply line chain of it comes in. The other thing I don't want to do is, because I know how expensive it can be, I wouldn't want you to produce a product and me say, oh, it's $15,000 to get 1,000 units. And then those come in and they're not right. And then you expect me to cover that fault, right? I need you to take responsibility for the project, right? I only release my own products. Selfishly, because I don't, every product I've ever released is 5-star rated, which is crazy to me. I don't understand. Again, it's because I put out 9 things over 20 years. It's because I'm not releasing a thing every week. But because of that, I wouldn't want to release a product through somebody else. And it would gut me if it was a 3-star product. And it might be. But that doesn't mean it's not worth being manufactured.
Yeah, I get it.
That makes sense?
Yeah.
When I talk about the 20 products I've consulted on, Craig, I would say 5 of them are probably 5-star products. The other 15 have value and they bring something to the industry, but they're not products that I would ever produce. They're products I'm happy to be a silent partner on and help people manufacture and help make available. And sometimes it's just because it's not a premise that I am interested in, right? Yeah. It's not so I can't passionately say, yes, everyone should buy this, because it's not, if you're going to turn a coin into a butterfly, that's not my jam. And it might look great, but it's just not a thing that I would ever release, So that's some of it too.
I totally get that. That makes complete sense. Man, it's been incredible. Before I finish this interview, sure, is there anything that, and I would be remiss to ask this, is there anything that you can, I don't want specifics, but is there anything that you can tease us that's coming from the Magic Firm over the course of the next year that we can look out for in 2022?
Yeah. So we've got a thing that's still a few months out probably, and I hate to say it's another wallet, because man, the magic industry and wallets is just ate up. But as I look through wallets, I've always been the guy who wants to create a wallet that does one thing and does it really well. I've never in my life seen a Z-Fold wallet that looks like a wallet. Yeah. Right? They all look like brochure holders. They all look like something. In a few months, the Magic Firm has what I believe will be the best Z-Fold wallet in the world coming out. Wow. It looks just like an FPS wallet, but it's a Z-Fold.
Wow, that's great.
And it loads like an FPS wallet on both sides. And it's incredible. I've already said too much, but we're in the prototype stage. I've been working now for a while, and I'm starting to dig it. A couple small things to work out in the manufacturing, just a couple small measurement changes and stuff. But I'll have some at Magic Fest this week, so I'll be showing it around there. But it looks just like it is. How many people watch this channel, Craig? How many people are going to see this?
A lot. We've got about 35,000 hours of watch time, almost 10,000 subs, but your average video, especially the interviews, get about 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. Wow.
We shouldn't do this, Craig, but just for you guys.
What? Shit.
Just for you guys, that's it.
That's so good.
But look at it. It's an FPS wallet. Like,
that.
Are you kidding me?
Is unbelievable, man.
Right? I'll do it again. I'll do it again just for fun.
Just as an opening production. Just
oh my
boom,
God.
boom,
Okay.
boom.
And remember, it's switching everything.
Yeah.
Right? So you can do it. Right now I have it set up for sort of like a Tommy Wonder, a watch ring wallet, but all in one position. You take out all the credit cards, you put them in an envelope, it all disappears and it's all back. Right?
That's so good.
Thanks. But you also do, because it loads like the card to wallet, Craig, you're going to get me excited. I'm going to talk too much. I'm already in trouble. Look, because it loads like an FPS, it's in my pocket. I card to pocket load it. When I take it out, I don't think I have it set up right now. Yeah, hold on. So you've selected and signed the 5 of spades. Yep. I load it in my back pocket. I take the wallet out. I say, look, if I don't find your card, you can have all the money in the wallet. What was it? Oh, the 5 of spades. That's the signed 5 of spades. So you can show that the wallet's empty right before the signed card appears.
That is incredible.
Isn't that crazy? So there's another, you do double signed card to wallet. So you palm 2 cards out, load the 2 cards in, show the wallet empty, snap your fingers, the 5 of spades has appeared. You take the 5 of spades out, show the wallet empty again, drop the wallet. Now the second card has appeared. I can't believe you got me to talk about this. I'm in trouble. You're going to have to delete all this. You can't post it.
It'll all be deleted. Don't worry. Yeah, nobody's ever going to see any of this conversation. It's fine. That's so good. Oh my God.
But the main thing is, what I set out to do was create a wallet that's a Z fold that looks like an actual wallet, because that's what I've never seen. They all look like, you know, weird flippy floppy briefcases, right? They all look like business card holders. They all look like briefcases. They don't look like a real wallet. So, yeah.
Wow. And do we have a time frame on that? Are we looking at the summer?
You know what? We're probably thinking summer, Craig. But you know, I don't ever, until I have product in my warehouse, I don't ever put a release date up. Yeah. Because that's the other thing I don't want to do. I don't want to be that company who tells everybody it's going to be out in March, and then we get defective units on February 19th, and I go, yeah, fuck it, just ship them. I don't want to be that guy. Right? Yeah. Right. I'm never going to be that guy. So I don't want to talk timelines until those boxes are stacked right here. And I go, 2 weeks from now, we're going to ship, and we will ship, because I never want to take somebody's money and go, yeah, well, we were going to ship in mid-February, but we had problems. So now it's going to be August. And then in August, go, well, the boat got stuck in the canal. So now it's going to be December, and I still have everyone's money. Like, that stuff just drives me nuts. So I don't ever talk release dates until I have physical things in my hand. But yes, summer is a tentative release date that we're looking at, right?
That's amazing. That's amazing. And Brent, honestly, you are one of my favorite people in Magic, genuinely, because you do everything right. You know, I firmly believe in my spirit animal, and this has been an incredible interview. You ship worldwide with the Magic firm, right? You go all over the world.
Unfortunately, we don't.
Okay.
Yeah, we only ship in the US, right? Which is a bummer, right? But it's because my wife and I are the only 2 employees.
Yeah.
And because of that, we don't get those big shipping discounts that those big boxes get. And because we don't get those shipping discounts, we just can't afford to do those things. That being said, do you have a preferred dealer you use over there?
Me personally, yeah. I mean, Prop Dog and Alakazam are the 2 that
perfect. And both run by both those amazing people. Peter and David are both amazing people, and we should be supporting them. So we're going to recommend that everyone on that side buy my products through Peter and Dave at Prop Dog and Alakazam. Yeah. And if you're in the US, you can buy from me. That's at brickandmortarmagic.com. And we sell, you know, everything that you could get, anything that comes from you know, Murphy's Magic, 16,000 items. We can ship you all of that and have it to you in a couple of days. We can do all the things the big boxes do. We just care a little bit more. That's sort of the whole thing. And that's all at brickandmortarmagic.com.
So the link's in the description down below. It's also at the bottom of the screen. Also, if people want to get into your Facebook group that we've talked about, where you do unboxing videos and rant and, you know, set the record straight, where would they go to get into that group?
So there's 2 things. You can actually you don't even need to be in the group to see the unboxing videos. The unboxing videos are actually posted on the website. So if you just go to brickandmortarmagic.com, sign up with an account. You can do that even if you're in the UK. You can sign up for an account. And there's just a blog post on the homepage halfway down that shows you all my unboxing videos. So you can see all the unboxing there. There's also a phone number there you can text, and that puts you on our text list. So I think you guys would be able to do that as well. And then you'll get the text that say, hey, new unboxing video up, here it is. And then the third thing is, if you're on Facebook, it's if you search for brickandmortarmagic.com, you'll find a hidden secret group. If not, you can find Brent M. Braun, that's me, on Facebook, and send me a message. We can get you inside of the group for sure. But I fully, everybody that's in the group is vouched for. So when you send a request, it's not going to be okayed immediately. I'm going to click on your thing and I'm going to look around, because we don't put up with negative bullshit. It is all positivity. If you come in that group and want to drop a meme about masks being fake, or Trump being a hero, or Biden being awesome, I don't care. I don't deal with any of it. That's not what this group is about.
No
if somebody posts a thing and you want to say a negative thing about it and be a gatekeeper, you're done. There's no questions asked. I don't mess around with any of that stuff. If it's not positive, it doesn't belong there. So I'll check out your wall. And if I'm looking through your Facebook stuff and every third thing is mean to people, you probably won't get accepted. And I'm sorry. That's just the way I live my life. And it's because I don't have time for negativity. I believe in surrounding myself by positive people to create positive things, and negativity doesn't, I just don't have time for it in my life. And then I'll also make sure you're a magician. So I may even send you a note and say, hey, how'd you find out about the group? And if you mention that you saw it on here, I can add you immediately. But I do want to make sure that you are a magician, because we still do get people that are searching for secrets, and that's not what this is about. I want to make sure that you sort of are, and it's not me gatekeeping, it's me just ensuring that you have some level of magic. And that doesn't mean that you can't just go, I bought a scotch and soda on Thursday and I'm really interested. Okay, we'll let you in. I just need to know, where you're at and what you're doing, and how to keep you in the group. So yeah, for sure.
Perfect. That's amazing. Brent, this has been an incredible interview. Thank you so much for taking the time out your day to do this for me. I really appreciate it. Like I said, you're one of the best guys in magic that I know, and you're an incredible creator, and I do all your material. I want everybody who lives in the US, and there's more people that watch my channel in the US than there are in the UK. So I want everyone who lives in the US to go check out Brent's website, go buy everything that this man does, because you are awesome. And thank you so much once again for coming on the channel.
No, thanks for having me, man. I truly and really appreciate it.
You're the man. Guys, do me a favor, leave a message, leave a comment down below. I'm sure Brent will see it. And don't forget, I'll be back tomorrow with another video at 9 o'clock. I will see you then.